then I decided that I was going to work in the hosiery mill a little while. Because after all, I had a big family. And after I worked in the hosiery mill. I worked in it twice, but this time I went to school started, and I decided that one of the superintendent of schools came down to visit me one day, and back then you could teach school if you just graduated from high school, but I taught. The superintendent came to see me, and he said, I heard you went to summer school this summer. Said, we'd like to talk to your father and see what he thinks about you teaching school on top of the mountain. And that was another mining camp up there. And so my father knew I wanted to teach school for my life. That was what I wanted to do. So I took the position, and I was 17 years old. And you're not going to believe that I'd had grades 4 through 8 in one room, and I had boys in the 8th grade that were older than I was. And so after I taught that first year, I decided that I was not going to teach school again until I was certified and ready to teach. So I went back to the hosiery mill, and then I worked a little while there, and everything started building up at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It wasn't Oak Ridge at that time. It was Clinton Engineering Works. And then the girls all started leaving. And they said, Ruth, go with us. Go down there and apply for a job. Let's get us a job down there. So I went, and I got the job. And then I had to take the training. And then after you take the training, you had to get cleared, they called it. You had to get approved. And then you were a worker, full-fledged worker.
Did you know when you accepted the job what you were going to be doing?
They told us that we were going to be operating a machine. And told us how to do it. And they gave us some rules. They told us what we learned there, we left it there. We didn't talk to anybody about what we were doing at any time, not even our families. And then after we got through all that training and the instructions they gave us, we went to work on our machines, and we called them cubicles at that time. And
So
we worked from 3 different shifts. We worked from 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7.
So Ruth, you were a cubicle operator, and that's what you were called back then. We only started calling you Calutron girls when Denise wrote this book, and it's just a very late term. But back then, you were a cubicle operator, and did you have any idea what you were doing?
No, I had no idea, and I dare ask a question.
Now, it is
So
my
we, so we just, so we just did what they told us to do.
Yes.
Now, it's my understanding your father worked there as well.
Yes, my father applied for a position and he got a job there too because he was working at, he was operating a sawmill for the Windrock Coal Company at that time. And so he just felt like he'd do better and he went with me and he got the job too. Not there.
Did you have any other family members who worked there as well?
No. Not at that time.
So you lived at home, it's my understanding, and then you traveled back and forth to
Yes, ma'am.
property. Can you tell us about the transportation? What type of transportation did you take back and forth?
Oh, we rode. I don't know whether you know what a cattle car was, but we had a bus, we called it, and it there was a looked like a cattle car that was connected to that bus, and it had a pot-bellied stove in the middle of it to keep us warm. But in the summer, we just had to burn up. And that's the way we rode to the plant, we called it.
Did you mentioned about the secrecy of the work that you were doing? And look at references to individuals who were called secret agents or creeps, or they worked to find out who snitches were out of the employees. Did you ever meet anyone who was a snitch or a creep or a secret agent for the taking place?
Did I ever?
Did you ever meet anybody that told on other people?
Well, I didn't know it, but I probably did. Because, we were afraid to get in little groups and talk. Just talk. Because you didn't know who was in that group that was ready to tell what you said. So I just made the point not to get in the group.
That's how she got to stay there, is she didn't talk about it. Those people that talked about it didn't get to stay. They were escorted off the site. So she was smart in not talking about what she was doing. Even though she didn't know what she was doing, she still couldn't talk about it.
Nope, didn't know. And really, we got to where we didn't care. We just did what we were supposed to do.
Yeah, you knew you were doing something to help win the war. You just didn't know what.
That's right. And that was our goal, was to help win the war.
Well, then that leads to another question. Did you have any family, or did you have a boyfriend who was in the war and was serving?
Oh, yes, I had a boyfriend.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
In Germany. He was in Germany.
Okay.
But, and everywhere else, he was all over the place over there. He was in the medical corps, and it was horrible to hear him tell about picking up the boys on the front line. And, after they've been shot or something. And I think that led to him having this bad stomach problem he had when he came back. But he was all over the place over there.
So do you think the work now, let me ask you this question first. Did this happen to be your husband, or was this someone else?
Well, it was my husband to be.
Okay.
So, Ruth, tell us about when you learned what you were doing. How did you learn what was really going on there?
Well, the supervisor told us that we had dropped a bomb on Japan, and that we had a part in it.
And how did that make you feel?
Well, at first, I was real excited. I felt like, Lawrence will be home,
Yeah.
and then the war will be over.
Yeah.
But then I got to thinking about it. The more I thought about it, the more it bothered me. They told us, how many had been killed, and I thought, oh goodness, I had a part in this, killing all those people. And it really bothered me. But I'm a person that I don't talk much about something that bothers me a lot. So I just decided I wasn't going to talk about it.
And
I did.
And
I lived for that for years.
Yes, ma'am, you did. You didn't talk about it for a long time. You remember how you first began to talk about it?
You're talking about when my granddaughter...
Yes, that's right.
My granddaughter was a junior in high school, and I was visiting her mother, and she came in the living room, and she said, I am supposed to write a paper about Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and give a report on it. And I said, what about it? And she said, how it started and all of that. And I said, well, I was there. And she didn't even realize I just never talked about working there, because it brought back some bad memories, But I helped her to write that paper. I told her the story. I didn't help her write it.
Miss Ruth, how long did you work at Oak Ridge?
About 2 years.
About 2 years?
Yeah.
What was the most important thing you took away from that experience?
Excuse me, I didn't get your question.
Do you remember the most important thing you took away from working there? Was it a good decision to go to work at Oak Ridge, to leave the hosiery company and work at the hosiery mill and work at Oak Ridge? Was that a good decision for you?
Was it a good thing for you to work at Oak Ridge? Do you feel it was a good thing?
Oh, yeah, it was a good thing for me to work there. It was an experience that you won't ever forget. And but I didn't go back to the hosiery mill.
Tell me about that, because I know there's a story about a one-room school. So tell me a little bit about what you did after Oak Ridge.
What I did after Oak Ridge?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I bet you can guess. I got married. One thing, I started back to college. I started back at the University of Tennessee, and I worked on my BS, and then I had 2 children, and I was teaching at the same time, and so I decided I'm going to get that degree, and then my children got bigger. I was teaching and going to school both. So I started taking them with me to school. And as they got bigger, I left my daughter in the library. The librarian was real kind, and she said, just leave her with me, and I'll take care of her. But I took my son to class with me, and he enjoyed it. One day in the botany class, the teacher asked a question, and everything was quiet, and all of a sudden Lanny spoke up and gave the answer. And that was the highlight of my college, I guess, having him answer the question. But I continued on and got my BS that way. And then I started working on my master's. I got it the same way. And I wanted them both to go to UT to college, but they wouldn't. They said they already had a degree. Because they went, they was worn out with UT.
So share with me. Okay, so you told us about your college education. So you school. When did you retire from teaching school?
When did I retire?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I taught school for
47.
12 years. I actually taught school, and the rest of it was 40-something years. I was a guidance counselor at a high school.
Okay.
And I was working toward my doctor's degree, and I decided that I wasn't going to finish it. I was going to enjoy my grandchildren. And that I did in 1989.
Well, that's
I've
good
been
to
enjoying
hear.
them ever since then.
That is a very admirable thing, and the ability to enjoy your grandchildren. I'm sure they appreciate the time with you as well. Is there any
Camilla,
other information that I haven't asked you about that I'd love to hear about Oak Ridge and the experience there?
Well, to me, Oak Ridge is sort of a unique place. I saw it before anything ever happened to it. It was a beautiful farm country, some beautiful homes there, and they had a good school. And then they started doing all of the grading and everything, and then I saw it built from scratch. And I appreciate the town. And because, I think back about that and about some of the people I knew back then that had to give up their homes for little amount, just a little money. And that's just, to me, Oak Ridge is a great place.
Camilla,
I have been there and visited. I think it is too. Ray, what can you provide to us as some additional information?
Thank you. I just want to add to Ruth's story by telling you that the major television network in Japan contacted us about wanting to do a documentary film on Oak Ridge. And so we got them connected with Ruth. And once they started talking to her, they changed their approach entirely. And they made a documentary film about Ruth's story. And I was really pleased to see that approach taken. And they've sent us copies of the documentary film. Of course, it's in Japanese, so it's a little hard for us to understand. But we do get the gist of the story, and she did an excellent job. And then most recently, she's been interviewed for the book. Oh my goodness, I'm not getting his name. The Fox Television Network.
Countdown to 95.
Yeah, Countdown to 1945. And what's his name? Lanny, you help me.
Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace. Thank you. like I told you earlier, Camilla, as you get older, your memory goes. But anyway, he
So
came. He
it's
actually
called,
he
I want to
came
make sure we have the title. It is The Countdown to
45.
1945
Yes,
by Chris Wallace.
by Chris Wallace,
Okay.
and it's a good book. He's done a really good job on it, and he came down and actually did the interview with Ruth. So she's a celebrity and well represents Oak Ridge.
So now, Ruth, you still live in Oak Ridge?
Oh no, she lives in Oliver Springs.
Is that where you're originally from?
She's from Windrock, which
Yes.
is up on top of the mountain. Oliver Springs is down at the bottom, and it's just a few miles from Oak Ridge.
Okay. So, can you tell us anything about Oak Ridge that has changed that you think is important from the time you worked there in 1944, 45, and the changes that you've seen now in the community, in the area?
What changes have you seen?
Well, I've changed it. I've seen all of the homes built, and they've built some beautiful homes over there. They're still building new homes. They built recently remodeling, or they tore down a mall and they building a new one. And they've got super schools over there. Their schools are just super. And they have good sports.
Hospitals.
And a good hospital.
Okay.
And they're still got a pretty good workforce over there. And well, have you been there?
Yes, ma'am. I was there in 2008.
And they've got a lot of,
Yeah.
they've got several new different motels and hotels. Got a lot of dining places, and it's just, as I say, I just like Oak Ridge.
One question I wanted to ask you that was written in the book that talked about work, but it also talked about social events. Because you did not live on the property, did you have any social events and activities that you could attend and go to while you were there?
While I was there,
You went home and worked.
no, I had to go home and help my mother because we had cows and horses, and I had to help milk the cows and feed the horses and all those things. And I had 6 brothers, and I was the oldest.
Okay.
And I have a brother that is younger than my son.
Oh my goodness. So you did not get to participate with the other employees in social events that were there?
No, I went to movies there a lot after, I lived in Oak Ridge a while until my son was born, and he was allergic. Back then, they just had cold heat, and he was allergic to the cold heat, cold smoke. And so I had doctor said, get out of Oak Ridge. Yeah.
Ray, can you tell us a little bit about what is left at Oak Ridge? And I know there's a museum that's there now that helps to tell the story of their involvement in the uranium production.
Sure, I'll be glad. I'll be glad to help you with that. There are 5 museums in Oak Ridge. We're a part of the Manhattan Project National Historical Park. We have still have the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which was the graphite reactor back during the Manhattan Project, but it's now the largest national laboratory in the Department of Energy system. We have the Y-12 National Security Complex, where the uranium was enriched for Little Boy and where actually Ruth worked. but it's still there as the main supplier of the nuclear materials for all of our nation's nuclear weapons, and actually dismantling nuclear weapons now and storing the uranium. All the uranium for the nation is stored there, except what's in a nuclear reactor or in the Navy's ships. And so Oak Ridge is now about 30,000 people. During 1945, it went up to 75,000 people. But we just today announced a new company coming into the East Tennessee Technology Park, which was the old K-25 gaseous diffusion site. And this new company is going to build a demonstration nuclear reactor here on that site. So Oak Ridge continues to make world-changing discoveries that come out of here, everything from nuclear medicine to even the touch screens on your iPhone. Those things were invented in Oak Ridge. So it continues to be a major economic driver for the area and produces discoveries daily here in Oak Ridge. So it's still a booming town.
Okay. And I know, are there any tours? I know I had heard about a bus tour a couple of years ago that you could take on certain days. Is there any type of tours that are available for individuals to take out there?
Yes, there are. Those tours are available. Now, of course, the COVID situation has caused it to be stopped for now. But there is a bus tour that goes from the American Museum of Science and Energy that will take you out to the graphite reactor, take you over to the K-25 gaseous diffusion site, and give a tour around the city. We hope to get that started back up soon. And then of those 5 museums, the Children's Museum of Oak Ridge, which is a great children's museum, but is also an excellent history museum, it's open 4 days a week. It's open on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the Manhattan Project National Historical Park is located in the main, their visitor center is located in the main lobby of that children's museum. I can tell you that on specific occasions I've been able to arrange private tours even while the museums are closed. So there's still a lot going on in Oak Ridge. We, of course, have the rowing venue that's not been as active this year again as we would like for it to be. But there's a lot to see and do in Oak Ridge. The International Friendship Bell is available there in the Bissell Park, as is the Secret City Commemorative Walk that talks about the 7 years that Oak Ridge was behind the fence. So, yes, there's a lot to learn about Oak Ridge, and our museums, we hope, will be open soon.
We appreciate it, sir. Thank you for sharing that with us. Miss Ruth, I will leave you with the last word. Is there anything you would like to share with us as we finish up and close? Would you like to share any last word about your experience there at Oak Ridge?
Well, it's just an experience that taught me a lot, and it taught me how to deal with war and things, you know, not to put as much worry behind it as you need. We just need to pray for the people. And that is one of the main things, I guess.
Well, those are some wonderful words to close on today. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thank you for your service, because you are working to support the war. And we appreciate you for your efforts and your service at Oak Ridge.